Good morning, good morning, good morning, and welcome to a Thursday morning edition of Strictly Business. My name is Rich Wallace, and I am here for your host this morning, and we are a part of EdgeTVNetwork.net, also with the Southern California Black Chamber of Commerce and Youth Build Inland Empire. That's a lot in one sentence, but I want to welcome you to a morning episode of Strictly Business. In case you don't know, Strictly Business is our talk show that comes on Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday morning at 7 a.m. California time. Sometimes I get confused, East Coast, West Coast, North Coast, South Coast. We have a lot of people that join us out in the Washington, D.C. area and down in the Texas area. And I want to welcome them and thank them so much for being a part of our show. They always chime in and give great compliments and tell us how much they appreciate what we're doing. Today, we are going to have our guest on today, Miss Sheila, and she is an author, an entrepreneur, counselor. I don't know what she done do, but we're going to be bringing her on in a few minutes, but we want to kind of circle back to what we've been talking about here on Strictly Business. And our business for 2023 is trying to figure out how us as a people, or any people, can learn to work together. We have so many different groups with the Hispanic chambers and the Asian chambers and other groups that are having the same internal situation of trying to find out how can we work as a unit in the minority community. How can all of these organizations that have almost the same goal in mind and a different way of approaching these things become a unit so that mainstream America can see that we are all together. We are not in competition with any other chamber organization or any other small business association or different groups that are trying to help small businesses. Our goal is to help small businesses and to get them through a process so that they can maintain at the level that they need to be at until growth comes and they can grow to the next level. I know a lot of times we're always talking about, well, let's get to the next level. Well, let's be comfortable in an uncomfortable situation at this level and make everything fine and flow well where we're at right now. And how do we get more business without taking business, without trying to put the other organization down on the other group in one side and the other group in the other side? Here at the Southern California Black Chamber of Commerce, from the desert to the sea, we do not believe in that. We believe in a unit, and we believe in working together. We work together with the ones we love and the ones we don't love. So find a way to make it work, and that's our goal, to finish out 2022 so that when we bounce into 2023, we're a unit, and we're a unit to be feared and to be dealt with in the business community. My name is Rich Wallace, and I'm with the Southern California Black Chamber of Commerce. And again, I want to welcome you to an episode of Strictly Business. We're going to take a short commercial break, and we'll be back with Miss Sheila. And hold on, you're going to love this. We'll be right back.
Good news for the Southern California business community. Now you can add your business to the Southern California Black Chamber of Commerce Business Directory complimentary. We have been working tirelessly to build a list of Black-owned enterprises in Southern California. This is an excellent way for you to be a part of an expansive network and find your ideal customers, business partners, and vendors. So don't waste time. Visit blackchamberofcommerce.org today and add your business today.
And that's one way for you to get some more business, is to put your name in the directory, which doesn't cost you a dime. It costs you some time, and time is money. So why not list yourself in a place that you can be found? Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, these and those, welcome to Strictly Business. And I want to introduce you to Miss Sheila Kimball. How are you doing this morning, ma'am?
Good morning, sir. I'm well, thank you.
And thank you so much for getting up early and being a part of this show. We really appreciate it. I understand that you're an early riser anyway. So, welcome to Strictly Business. And we're going to get right into it, Ms. Sheila. We asked you to be a guest. Number one, I was telling the people before that you're an author, and kind of give us a little brief overview of what else it is that you have available.
Well, I am an author. I also have a 501c3. I work in mental and behavioral health. I am currently a substance use disorder counselor, and I am a group facilitator for batterers intervention programs.
Okay. And are your books that you've written about battered people, or what kind of books have you? Tell us about the time spent in writing. I've always wanted to write a book. People tell me all the time, "Hey, you should write a book. You should write a book." And I'm like, I can barely spell my last name. So, is that a difficult process, or were you just born to be a writer?
Well, my first book, it took me 4 years. It was a project and a process. But once I kind of got mm, kind of got used to doing it and going through that process, it doesn't really take me as long. I have had some authors to tell me that it takes them up to 6 months, but I do my own research. I do my own editing. I do my own book covers. So for me, when I'm focused, it doesn't take me as long. Take me a couple of months. But because of my busy schedule, it's taking me just a little bit longer.
Okay. And do you have some of the books that you want to talk about that you've written that are available, and how do we get them? And is it a life-changing book? Can I read it and go save the world, or can I learn how to make soup with it? What kind of help me out here?
Well, I currently have 9 books. Um,
9 books, and
yes,
the
sir.
titles are
The first one is Bits and Pieces of Me, A Mother's Memoir. That was my first book. My second book is A Sister's Blues. I also have A Sister with Faith and Me and Mr. Jones. Those are books about church house hurt. It deals with domestic abuse from a male and a female's perspective. I also have Julia, Raising Black Sons. And it's not so much about raising Black sons, it's being a single mom raising sons, period. I just focused on a minority group because it's not really talked about. And then I have 2 books dealing with male victims of domestic violence, which is Paralyzed in Pain, and Real Men Who Suffer Too, since they don't really talk about male victims of domestic violence. I have 2 cookbooks, and I currently also have a play.
oh, okay. So you have a cookbook
I have two, yes.
too. Uh,
Yes.
And is it how to make dressing or chicken soup, or is it
Well, it's Naya and Monet's Soul Foods, Sweets, Treats, and Foods to Eat. People, when they see the cover, they kind of get confused because it has sweets and treats on the front, but it has some soul food in it. It also has some Black history in it because I feel that everybody needs to learn cultural history. So I talk about history, Black history. The first one is Naya and Nana's Soul Food Cookbook, and that's has soul food in it. How to cook collard greens, candied yams, dressing, and things like
you
that.
say how to cook collard greens? Don't you just throw them in the pot, put some bacon in there, and turn them on? That can't be that deep, or is it?
Well, you have to prepare them. You have to pick them. You have to
Okay.
clean them. You got to make sure you clean them real good, and then you kind of boil them. But it's a
Yeah,
process.
I like a good bowl of greens, and sometimes I taste greens and I'm like, these are pretty good greens, and I don't know what that person did that was different from another person's greens. So do you have one of the books that you could show us?
That book I don't currently have, but I do have Paralyzed in Pain. This is the one that I'm currently promoting. This is one about male victims of domestic violence, and it touches in depth about how some men get caught up with fatal attractive women and end up in some serious situations.
So it's not always the woman that is dealing with domestic violence, even though that's a heavier situation. So you're saying that there is some possibilities that men are going through domestic violence as well. Is there
This
an example of? I mean, she can't beat him up. So what? What kind of possible domestic violence could a man be going through?
Well, first of all, a male goes through domestic violence at a young age when he witnesses his mom, his cousin, his sister, or someone in his family close to him being abused. They are also victims of domestic violence. Many times they grow up and they become either the batterer or they become susceptible to that female. And oftentimes, a female will elicit someone else to do her bidding. But then you have some females, because I am, of course, a counselor for batterers, where there are some females that have picked up some baseball bats and have told some horror stories in some of these groups, and I'm like, wow, y'all some
Wow.
serious women, and they're serious.
Yeah. So, is that because of a form of jealousy, or they just crazy?
Some of them are jealous, some of them are just crazy. And I've had some of the clients who have said, they have to be in control. They're aggressive and they won't stop. And this is why the courts keep sending them back.
So let's talk about a battered situation. Whether it's on the male side or the female side, that always puzzles me on why you would want to fight the one you love, I guess you might say, or the one that you believe you love. Then all of a sudden you're and there's a lot of battered women shelters, I think they call them, where women have to hide from their aggressor. I was reading something the other day. They were saying that the number one killer of pregnant women is the man that got them pregnant.
That's true. That's
That
true.
is the weirdest statement in the world, because to get pregnant, that's a passionate love kind of thing that's going on, and then all of a sudden it turns violent. I for some reason I don't get that. As a counselor, do you have an explanation for that, or how do you know?
Well, a lot of times what happens is the person that is the batterer has a deeply rooted trauma that is unresolved. They oftentimes don't get help, especially in the minority communities. It's a stigma to go get help. But what we're focusing on now is how to reach out to go get help. Um, there's only some things that I can talk about because I'm currently not licensed. I'm in a process of training, of course, but they people need to reach out for help. And the trauma that they have inside again is unresolved trauma. And a lot of times these women or even men are what we call bonded. So they are attracted to those people who look vulnerable or can be easily manipulated. And this is why they end up in some unhealthy relationships oftentimes.
Okay, now from we're a business organization, so sometimes we run into this because entrepreneurship is up and down. Is it tied to finances that I can't afford to pay the rent anymore and we're getting put out, or I can't buy you the Lexus or the Mercedes that you want? Is it tied to physical stuff, or is it tied to because a lot of entrepreneurs go through things that most people don't think they go through, because oh, you have a business, you're doing great, you're doing this and that, but that person is set with not only a regular home mortgage, but a business mortgage, not only uh, lights, gas, and water at home, but light, gas, and water at their commercial or their business as well. Does that put a strain on relationships? Does that, or did they just pick the wrong person that can't hang with them when it gets tough. And I've seen it, so I'm kind of figuring out. Well, didn't they know that you were an entrepreneur? Didn't they know that you was gonna be, broke today and have some money tomorrow? Or how I'm trying to figure out how a person gets in or gets out of that situation.
Sometimes it's difficult with entrepreneurs. A lot of times, many entrepreneurs have to do a dual job. So that means that they have to work a 9 to 5 in order to sustain their business. And in sustaining their business, the person that they may be with will see them at a peak in their business where they're doing good, and they are unsupportive of their spouses or their significant others' success. So by them being unsupportive, they become jealous. And a lot of times that causes tension within the relationship, because domestic abuse isn't always physical. It could be financial, it could be verbal, emotional, mental. There is a lot of aspects of the domestic abuse part. But that's what often happens is they see, okay, well, she's hanging out with this group of people, or he's hanging out with this group of people, and they're doing good, and they assume, okay, well, they got to be getting some money from somewhere, some type of finances or grants or something. So yeah, they become, a lot of times they become jealous because you're succeeding or you're moving forward with your goals, your aspirations, and they're in a stuck mode where they don't want to see you progress. And that's where a lot of the tension and the division comes in at.
And then sometimes it's very hard to leave. I had somebody leave me one time, and it was a difficult process to process when the breakup is not mutual. Or when that person outgrows another person, and or you couldn't keep up with that growth pattern. And when I speak about it, it's from a business aspect, and I always look at things from the business entrepreneur side of the fence. Is that there used to be an old song, say 50 ways to leave a lover, and get on the bus, Gus, drop off the key, Lee, and it's the same thing when it's time to change your business atmosphere, or to take your business knowledge from being a cook to now being the distributor to cooks. I had restaurants for a lot of years, and when I got out of the restaurant business, I'm like, okay, where do I go now? What do I do with what I've learned and what I did? I owned a bunch of restaurants, but I didn't cook in the restaurants. So I was the manager, or so to speak, the overseer to making the functions work. And I realized that, okay, I know how to run businesses. So let me open a management company and help manage businesses. So I moved in that direction. And when you're in a personal relationship and that person can't pivot from one to the other, is sometimes it makes it a very hard breakup. But what I see now is that we have a couple of members of the Southern California Black Chamber of Commerce that have jobs, and their job is to make sure that visitations go the right way. I just saw in the news where a gentleman that is being charged with murder for killing his baby that they found in the Los Angeles River, which is a horrible thing. I don't know how you could do something like that to your own baby, but stress and that other person, as you were saying, succeeding and moving forward is damaging to somebody that's sitting still. So how does that person that's sitting still, do they go to a counselor? How do they get out of the hate mode? Or there used to be, and I'm an old song guy, there used to be an old song, say the way I love you is the way I hate you now. So how does that person not be angry with another person's success when they leave them? I know when my heart got broken and she was gone, I chased her for a couple years, and then when I realized that the chase was was no longer beneficial to me, because it's kind of like when you're angry at a person and that person don't even know you're mad at them. They go on with their life and you still sitting there pouting, I'm mad. How do you get past that?
A lot of times we do need counseling for things like that. But what I will tell people is to include the individual, just like in a domestic abuse relationship. A lot of times the person that's being abused, they don't want to leave the relationship, but they want help to help the person, to teach them how to unlearn the learned behavior. And this is what we have to do as entrepreneurs, is to teach that person how to unlearn that negative behavior and have healthier business relationships. So what you can do is include that person in the business aspect of your success. Let them see how hard it is for you to work. For me, for instance, I'm working on some things. I didn't go to bed until like 2:40 this morning. I had to catch myself, because when you have that entrepreneurial mind, your mind is always working. So there's late nights, early mornings, and then you have to go to a 9 to 5 for some entrepreneurs. And so what you would do is you would assign to that individual an assignment. Okay, well, this is how I create the covers, and this is what you can do for me, and focus on this. Once they get that done, then give them another project to do. And then when they get that done, some of them will say, you know what, this isn't for me. I'm gonna let you go and do your thing. I can understand what you're going through now. And then there's some that, they want to take your stuff and they want to take it over and they want to go on about their own business. And that's fine too, because you don't give them everything in your plate. You let them see how hard it was for you to struggle and get yourself up and going. So that's how I focus on that.
Okay, so what are the early signs of domestic abuse? How can I tell that it's coming? Is you slamming the door a sign? What is an early sign for this fool is crazy? What is an early sign that people should possibly look out for when it seems to be going the other way?
We call those trigger warnings. Red flags, what some people call it. And it can be as subtle as slamming a door or making little snide remarks, about things that you're doing in the business. Oh, you must be in that business because, or, it's always little subtle things that you look out for. And then it becomes more aggressive, because the first stage is basically the honeymoon stage. And then they have that cycle of abuse where it's the action and so on and so forth. But you check out certain subtle things that you didn't notice before, they never displayed before. And that's when you can recognize that there's a problem, whether it's financial, trying to control the finances. That's a form of abuse. Um, Verbal, emotional, always putting you down. Oh, that's why your business ain't going nowhere, because you ain't about nothing. Things like that. Those are trigger signs, trigger
So,
warnings.
so when you talk about verbal abuse, is that the I guess the cursing out of a person or the constantly correcting them? Is correction abuse? I have people around me sometimes, because I'm from Texas and I get a little southern, and sometimes I don't say this word right, or what that word the proper way. And I have some English majors that are around, and they continue to correct. And sometimes, time I kind of overlook it, but sometimes I just kind of give them that eye, like, okay, all right, So is that a sign of, is correction a sign of abuse?
It depends on the extent of it, because sometimes if they're being aggressive, that could be a sign. Because I can correct someone, but the way in which I say it would determine on whether or not, if it's abuse or not. Because if I'm aggressively putting you down, you need to go back to school. You don't know what you're doing. That can be a form of abuse.
Okay. Now, the the receiver of this abuse. How does a person not become offended by how, because some people are hard shell. I'm a hard shell guy. I tell people all the time, it's really hard to hurt my feelings. I grew up in a situation that people were designed to hurt your feelings, and foster care and orphan homes and these types of things shift around. So it's difficult because I come with such a hard shell, but at the same time, my hard shell does not have the compassion that it should, or that other people think that I should have about a situation. Uh, I was looking this morning at the news, and they were talking about the young lady that is being released from prison in Russia. The basketball star. Her wife was talking to the president, and they got her out after 9 months. But there's a guy been there for 5 years. And they still working on him. And I'm like, well, I don't have a lot of compassion for the girl for 9 months. Now, 9 months is still 9 months. She still went through a tough time and all of that kind of things. Is that where does a person that has been put down mentally, physically, and that has hardened themselves like a turtle shell, and how is that person now supposed to, or not, how does that person to keep from becoming an abuser, as you were saying earlier? Because my daddy used to slap me around, but I thought that was the way daddies did. So I didn't take it personal. I didn't think that he was trying to abuse me. I took it as he was trying to teach me not to leave that cup on the table. So now I'm older, I don't leave cups on the table, because I know, I look around, he's been dead for a while. That slap might come from someplace, because they would always say, you'll remember next time if I do this, this, and this. So is there a thin line between abuse and training? I was in the Marine Corps, and I thought it was abusive the way they taught us in boot camp. But when I got out of boot camp, that abusive training was necessary for me to survive in Vietnam. So how thin is that line, or is it?
It's very thin. For the military, they discipline you, as you stated, for survival. In many marginalized and economically challenged communities, they discipline their children for survival. Unfortunately, what happens is a lot of these children are like literally abused. They are beaten, and many of them end up dead. They have broken bones. So the laws are changing where they're working with families to help to alleviate some of that stress. You have families that's living in cars. That's stressful. So now they have programs, Section 8, they have HUD housing, low income apartments that these individuals can get in, providing they qualify, to help alleviate some of that stress. They have the food stamp programs, they have general leave, they have the we call it welfare to work, where they help many of these people to be able to take vocational classes, training, and even go to school to get an AA degree so that they can better their situations, or they help them get jobs at places like Walmart, because we always need those people in Walmart, and Target. So they're trying to work with the families instead of ripping families from the home. Now they're trying to work with the families to keep the families together.
So now I hear you, and we're talking about families in a stressful situation. So are you telling me that the $100,000 to $200,000 a year income people that live in the big house on the hill, they don't have domestic problems, abuse problems? They pretty much cool because they got money and they got some nice cars in the yard and everything is good. So we ain't beating up on the woman, and the woman ain't beating up on the man, and we're not beating our children. Is that what you're telling me?
Well, what I'm saying is that domestic violence, it doesn't discriminate. It doesn't care what color you are, what class status you hold. It doesn't care what gender you are. It doesn't care about religion, because that's a form of abuse too, religion as well, because you have some cultures that use religion as a form of abuse. But domestic violence doesn't discriminate.
So you telling me that me telling you about Jesus Christ and helping people could be abusive?
Well, not in that particular sense, but if you beating on me, you say the Bible says that
Beat
you're
your
supposed to
woman.
be submissive to your husband, that's abuse.
Ah, okay. All right. Is so okay, all right. And all right, I got it. I'm trying to make sure that that our audience, as well as, because we are working on a show called Manuscript, and it's about men going through abusive situations.
Ooh, I would love to be a part of that project.
So as we're developing this show and this project about men going through situations in their lives, we're trying to determine that, because I was always taught man up,
Mm-hmm.
you know, uh, as the white lady said to the basketball player, just shut up and dribble, you know. And in that format, that was what we were come up with: shut up and quit whining, do your job, and if you do what you're supposed to do, you won't have these kinds of problems. That's what I was always taught. And even today, I struggle with people that bring me excuses.
Yeah.
I don't take those well. I'm working on that, but when it's always somebody else's fault, it's never my fault. The reason I was late is my car wouldn't start. My wife hid the keys and I couldn't find them. I usually put them on the key rack and she put them on the table. So I'm 10 minutes late. But if you check my record, I'm always late to wherever it is I'm going. Not me personally, but the people that have those reasons for not succeeding blame other people. So me blaming you, is that a form of abuse to you, or are you abusing me because it is always your fault?
No, it all depends on the situation, because you can have an attorney who had a wife who was once, let's say, a nurse, and he decided he's going to marry her, but he wants her to quit her job. He doesn't want her to go to school, and he doesn't want her to advance. He wants her to stay home and have 5 or 6 kids so that he
What's
can
wrong with
be able
that?
to control her.
Time out, time out, time out. What's wrong with a man wanting the woman to stay home so he could take good care of her and produce his seed?
Well, there's
Is that a bad
nothing.
thing?
It's really nothing if she agrees, but when he stops her from being able to promote and advance in life so she can be able to sustain, maybe she want to work so she can go and get certain clothes or certain purses or shoes so she doesn't have to ask her husband for some money. Maybe she wants to work so that she can be able to go out and buy him some gifts sometimes and do things for him, but you don't want her to advance.
So is that an early sign of abuse that may come? Because as we were dating and as we were trying to get our thing together, and I said, "Oh, girl, as soon as we get married, you ain't got to go to work no more." And I just kind of casually said that. And it makes most women smile, okay, I ain't got to work no more, you're going to take good care of me. But the reality of it is I want to lock you down, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, is that an early sign, or is that just a guy trying to be the guy? Because guys, men need to take care of something.
Well,
That's kind of
true.
the DNA in most men, is that they want to take care, they want to solve the problem, they want to make it happen for their significant other, as is today. Can't just say woman, you have to say as is today. They want to take care of the significant other. Is that an early sign of dictatorship?
It depends on the situation. That again, there are some men that they don't want their wives to work, but say she has a stay-at-home business, he doesn't have a problem with her doing that. But at the same time, there are some guys that don't want their wives to do nothing at all. Nothing. Just stay home, cook, clean, and that's it. You know, the old school thing is staying at home, being barefoot in the kitchen and all that. Yeah,
Now,
that doesn't go too well.
one of our famous friends say he don't want nobody around his house when he's not at home. BB King said, I don't want the mailman coming. I don't want your mama coming over. And I heard his song the other day, and he said, if you get sick, don't call the doctor. You just got to be sick till I get home. Was BB King at that time behind domestic abuse? Was that song that BB King that he made famous said, I don't want nobody around my house when I'm not at home. I don't want your mama coming over and I don't want your sister coming over. Was BB King an abusive songwriter?
It's that thin line, because the Isley Brothers, one of their songs, I want to say Backstabbers, say the same thing. But if you think about Aretha Franklin, and she said, I don't want my mama, I don't want my sister, Dr. Feelgood, you know. It depends on the song and how you look at it. But you do have situations like, you know, in my situation, I was a victim of domestic abuse. Thank God I was able to get out of it. But then my son, he didn't make it. He was a victim of domestic abuse. And because he was a victim of domestic abuse and other young men like him, or men, there's a lot of men in the graveyard that are victims of domestic abuse. It doesn't mean that they're weak. It just means that they just happen to fall into one of those webs, you know, that just got them caught up in a cycle of abuse.
Okay. Now you're into the counseling portion of it, so we're gonna flip over back into business and say, as an entrepreneur and a business guy, how does an entrepreneur, female or male, get their significant other on the same page? Is there a conversation, or should we be in a counseling session? I mean, a lot of times people, let's go to counseling. Let's go to counseling. Okay, well, you know, I'm okay. I don't need counseling. You know, there's nothing wrong with me. Is because of the aspirations of a person that wants to not just own a house, but to own a neighborhood. Can that person that has that strong, I'm going to be a billionaire attitude, does that person sit that significant other down and say, listen, this is where we're going. This is how we're going to handle this, you know? And as you well know, power brings other people into the arena. Power brings finances and power, and these different things make the male or the female look really, really appetizing to somebody across the street. So is the grass greener on the other side?
Not always. Not always. Sometimes you have to sit your partner down and talk to him and say, you know, these are my goals and my aspirations, and I would like for you to be a part of this. And we can use a therapist or a counselor as a mediator to help give ideas, to help guide, to advise, you know, what it is that you should do. You can also have for me, being an author, have your significant other write basically a book. Tell them, you write down how you feel about being the other half of that entrepreneur, you know, going into business. And their minds get to thinking. And they may say, you know what, this is a little bit harder than I thought, but get them to writing. And for me, I get them to writing, get them to, you know, I ask questions like, what does it feel? How does it feel, you know, running a business? Here, my business deals with victims of domestic violence, males and females. And I'm incorporating other avenues, programs, and workshops. So I would sit them down and say, you know, here's the itinerary. This is what we need to do. Can you help? Can you do the little things? You know, even give them a couple dollars if push come to shove. You know, I might give you $200 for 16 hours. That's just an example. And let them do some work so that they can see what it's like. Because sometimes they'll step back and say, you know what, I'm good. It's all on you. You take care. You can handle your business. And then you have those that will jump right in. And this isn't for the significant other. You might have family members, sisters, brothers, your kids, cousins, aunts, uncles that may feel the same way. Oh, she thinks she all that now because she's doing a little bit of this and a little bit of that, or he's doing a little bit of this and a little bit of that. Have them to do the same thing. You know what? Why don't you go and make some t-shirts, screen print them, do this. Why don't you go order the t-shirts? Why don't you get a graphic designer, go through them, interview them, see how good their work is? Would you use their work on some of your projects and get them to, involved in the business? And sometimes it can go well. Sometimes it just go to the side where they'll sit back and watch you work.
Okay, so we're going to take a short break, and then we're going to come back and we're going to ask you some questions on how to write a book and how to get one published. So, because to writing a book, I mean, you may have the passion and the gift to want to write a book, but we want to know how we make money at it. So that's our next step coming back. So we'll take a short break.
Business owners are raving about the new talk show, Strictly Business with host Rich Wallace. Tune in as the top experts in business share their success stories, strategies, guidance, and advice to help you grow your business. With guests from the top companies to your favorite influencers, Strictly Business with host Rich Wallace is the show to watch for all things business. Our conversations are strictly business. We discuss new funding options, new business initiatives, best business practices, all things business explained. We provide you with the tips you need for your business, all in one morning business talk show. Be sure to tune in. Are you a business owner? Do you have a story to share? Are you able to help our audience? Then we want you on Strictly Business with host Rich Wallace. Visit the website at edgetvnetwork.net and select Be a Guest to schedule your appearance today.
Okay, we have Miss Sheila in our office here, and she is going to come back on, and she's going to tell us how to write a book, and we're going to figure out how we can sell some books. Hey, Miss Sheila, thank you for coming back and hanging with us. Well, we've gone through the domestic violence portion of the show. I've learned some things, as they say, keep your hands in your pocket and toughen up your skin a little bit. So that when you're offended, you're not upended and offended. So that's a good point and a good thing. But I want to write a book. I can barely spell book. So how does a guy with a story, and I see people writing books all the time, and they got them on Amazon, and they sold two. They bought one and their mama bought one. And to write a book is one thing, but to distribute a book, and we don't have a Oprah that's going to promote our book. So how is it that we can sit down and actually write a book? Is there steps 1, 2, 3, 4, 5?
Yes, it is.
Okay, step 1.
Well, step 1 is to have the vision to write the book. If you don't have a vision, you don't have a plan. If you don't have a vision or a goal, you don't have a plan.
So is a vision a story? Is the vision a story?
Yes.
Okay. All right. I hate to interrupt, but I'm trying to get it down. So the vision is the story that I want to write about.
Yes.
And that would be me, let's say.
Yes.
Okay. All right. Mm-hmm. I got me. So now what?
And I always say Habakkuk. I always quote Habakkuk 2:2. Habakkuk in the Bible.
Okay. Okay. Well, I mean, everybody ain't got a Bible,
So. It says to write the vision down and make it plain. So you take that vision and you write it down.
Okay.
It's a plan. You write. I always tell people, you want to write a book? Write. Some people get back to me. Some people don't. Right.
When you say write, just what do you mean? Write.
Just write. Just start writing. Start writing.
What?
Whatever it is that you want to write. I tell people start from the beginning of your life or the beginning of the tragedy and just write. Just write. Once you do that, then you have coaches that will step in, that will assist you, guide you. I'm working with a couple of people now. I tell them, finish the first chapter. When you finish the first chapter, then I work with you on the first chapter and we can go chapter by chapter.
Okay, Miss Sheila, back up. I mean, you're talking to someone that when you say write the first chapter, uh, that totally confused me, and you say, well, right, okay, if I was born in 19 da 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 da, and I this what happened, when I was 5, and I remember this at 6, and I remember when I turned 19, because I jumped from 6 to 19. So there's 20 years in the middle there that I need to go. Do I need to fill them in, or am I trying to get to when I was tossed off the bridge, or how did I get to the bridge? I mean, when you say write the first chapter, you're assuming I know what a chapter is when it starts and how it ends. Is it the middle? Because the first chapter could be the whole book to one person.
Right, right. So what I do when I guide people, if they're serious, I always tell them write 100 pages. Don't write less than 100 pages. So your first chapter could be the first 10 pages.
Okay.
Your first chapter can be the first 100 pages. It depends on what it is that you want to write. So we guide this, and we use this as a guide, as a step-by-step process. So we work with the people. We can ghostwrite.
Oh, okay. So you write books for other people?
Yes, I do. I also have someone that I utilize that writes books for me, with me having so much on my plate.
Okay.
And they have a step-by-step process that they use similar to mine's.
Okay.
We have a consultation first to get an idea of what the person wants, how their book cover wants to be designed, because your book cover, it sells. If your book sucks and you got a beautiful book cover, your book can still sell, because I just might want that book because it's got a cute cover on it. Yeah, some people do that. Some books I've seen had a gorgeous cover, but the quality, or the what was in the book, the meat, it
Okay.
wasn't as appealing. So it all depends,
If
that's
you ever,
part of the marketing.
okay. Now the marketing is a whole nother part, because the book could suck, the cover could suck, and if you got a great marketing team,
Exactly.
we was teasing about Mr. B.B. King. I didn't think he was a good singer, but he had a great marketing team. See, I loved him too, but it didn't seem like he could hit a real note, but I loved him too. So I thought his music was good. But then when I look back at it now, it was pretty rough around the edges, because he say the thrill is gone, and I'm done with you, and you
Mama
can't
don't
talk to
love
me
me.
no more. It's like, come on, bro, So, but as we start trying to gather what people are saying in the words, I have a son, and my son has a podcast called Lyrics and Latte, and he goes through the lyrics of rap music and breaks them down and turns them into positive notes. So when you start looking at the lyrics in a song, I mean, the song Purple Rain is a terrible song. It's a breakup song. He said, I don't want to see you until after Purple Rain, which means that the whole world has been destroyed and I still don't want to see you. So I think, whoa, that's pretty deep. And everybody's Purple Rain, waving a little thing there. But if you listen to the words, it's a terrible song. So how is it that people can put these things in book? Well, let me ask you this: you ever trash anybody in your books?
Oh yeah.
Oh,
But
oh, oh
I
yeah.
have been I have been blessed to be able to creatively develop it in a way where a person will say, "Is she really talking about me?" Or yeah. So that's part of being an author. If you can create like that, then you have a gift.
Wow. Okay. All right. Okay. So I'm going to write a book. A friend of mine gave me a cassette tape and some cassettes and the plug
The
and
old
all of the
school way.
materials to get started. And I've had this for about a year now. And in 2023, I'm going to write down that I'm going to start my process in writing my book. I haven't got the title yet, but I'm going to write. And I always think of people that write books about their life. Nobody cares about your life, unless you robbed a bank and, or you did something dramatic, something eye-catching. But if you just had a regular life, I'm not the only kid that grew up in foster care. There's a million kids that grew up in that environment. So some of them have written books and some of them haven't, and Oprah grew up like that. And Well, Oprah's a multi-billionaire now. So people want to find out how she got there, But, I'm just trying to make, as an old song says, I'm just trying to make ends meet. And and I've learned that ends don't meet. That's why they call it an end. So they never meet. Trying to figure out, why was my story be interested to people to buy my book? Do I have to put in there that, I fell off a horse, or, what like in a song, there's a hook in the song. You may never know the song. Like we were talking about Purple Rain. People just saying Purple Rain, but that's the hook. They don't listen to the words that this man say. I'm sorry, we can't be friends no more. I'm sorry that these things happen, but I'm so angry with you that I don't ever want to see you again until after Purple Rain, which means if it's purple and it's rain, something's happening, Right. So how is it that you can make your story or your hook make people want to read it?
Well, what you do is, as you're writing, you don't start off exactly giving the hook, but you give them a nugget that gets them started in reading. And in doing so, you can also, for me, I go to different engagements or functions, and I speak about what happened in my life. For instance, the tragedy. So when I speak about the tragedy, and people will say, well, how can I find out more about this? Well, you can go to my website and you can order my book, Bits and Pieces of Me, because it has bits and pieces of me. And I titled it that. It was just, I always tell people, don't worry about the title, because you can put working title. Just start writing. So for me, with Bits and Pieces, I say bits and pieces because even in my cookbooks, if you read it, each book is about a bit and a piece of me. So it will hook a person in and say, well, you know what? Is she talking about this in here? Let me read about this. Is it true? You don't know. Is it not true? Well, yeah, it might not be true, but as an author, you are creative enough to put that hook in that fish and catch that fish.
Okay. All right. So writing a book, I don't need to have the title, because that's where I've been stuck. I'm like, as soon as I come up with this, and I'm always beating on young entrepreneurs. They go, as soon as I do this, I'm going to get started. And I tell them what you say, get started. Don't worry about that. Just start, start in the middle and work your way back out on business aspects. Man, I guess putting a book together is the same thing. It's just start writing parts of it, and then later you can begin to put it together or arrange it. I know I've taken some production class on movies and things like that. And you always think that they start at the beginning of the movie and they just run all the way to the end. And sometimes they will do the end of the movie first or the middle of the movie, and they work both ways until they get to, or till they run out of money. Spike Lee makes a movie, and then when he's out of money, okay, movie's over, and then we get in the editing room and you start putting it together, which is where the movie is actually put together, is in the editing process. So, which is kind of what you're telling me about the book. Now, give us your website so that people can find you. Show us a couple of your books. And so we can see what the cover looks like. Because you say if you got a good looking cover, you can sell a book.
This is me and Mr. Jones. This is me and Mr. Jones.
Me and Mr. Jones?
Yes, me and Mr. Jones. And this book is about quote unquote pimps in the pulpit, basically. It's about church house hurt. And I tell people, don't focus on the negative of the what the book is about. Focus on the positive, because it has an eloquent ending. It shows the tragedies, the trials and tribulations that some people have gone through, but they were able to overcome those obstacles and turn that negative into a positive. And then I have Paralyzed in Pain, which is the book that I'm promoting now. It is about male victims of domestic violence and how some males get caught up in a cycle because they're in love, like women do, and how situations can go astray. So my website is for my books is the Innovative One, and Innovative is TIVE, and the number one. So it's the innovativeone.com. And then my nonprofit is Duncantel, DUNCANTELL.org. That's the Innovative One, number one, and Innovative is with an E for the books. And Duncantel.org is my nonprofit organization.
Okay. All right. So that's how we find you. And we can order books directly from your website.
You can order from my website. You can also go on Amazon, because through me, it'll take a couple of weeks. Amazon might ship it the next day, and I'm not that popular or big just yet. I'm working on it.
Okay, we're going to be doing a book signing coming up in March, I believe, with Miss Sheila and a few other authors. So check out our website at blackchamberofcommerce.org and watch for the book signing that's coming up. Also, on our website at Black Chamber of Commerce, we've got a fantastic Martin Luther King weekend coming from the desert to the sea in Palm Springs, MLK breakfast in Ontario with Trudy and the MLK Foundation with the Juneteenth group. There's a breakfast going on at the Doubletree in Ontario. Also, we've got a massive parade with DJ somebody in San Bernardino. Lawrence Hilton Jacob will be there. We're going to have a great time in the San Bernardino region. Also out in Long Beach, we got a parade coming up with the Long Beach chapter. Bunch of stuff coming up in 2023. So if you're not ready, get ready, be ready. Don't let that New Year's countdown count you out. And I tell people, if you're in the same spot today in December 8 in 2022, if you were in the same spot on December 8 in 2021, you're in sin. So you want a whole year. Say again?
No, if you were 21.
No, that's what I mean. If in 2021, whatever you were at, if you didn't grow by the time 2022 December 8 got, and you're in the same spot you were in 21, now in 22 you're in the same spot, change your life. Get on the bus, Gus. Then I would like to say comfortably, without making somebody real mad, that you have been in domestic violence to yourself if you went a whole year and you did not grow. That to me is a violence that you've put up on yourself. You didn't allow yourself to grow in one whole year. My name is Rich Wallace. This has been an episode of Strictly Business. Ms. Sheila Kimball has told us how to write a book, and we're going to write a book, and we're going to have books on tape, and we're going to have some other stuff going on. So thank you so much for being a part of Strictly Business today. And if you just check us out tomorrow, we're going to have another guest on, and we're going to be talking about some dynamite stuff coming soon. Strictly Business, 7 a.m., Wednesday, Thursday, Friday morning. And an opportunity to connect from the desert to the sea. Thank you so much, Miss Sheila, and for being a part of this show. And let's sell some books. All right.
Thank you.